Hello, BookTube. Well, as you can see, I have a guest. This is Randy Ray, the literate Texan,
Hey,
phoning
everybody.
in from Driftwood Ranch from Texas, which is very cold right about now.
It is, but it's going to get warmer today. It's supposed to get up to 40 degrees today.
I suppose all of Texas is still having flashbacks to that nightmarish power grid failure.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. In
With
fact, a lady
Cancun,
friend of
Ted
mine,
Cruz.
a lady friend of mine called me up the other day and she said, I'm afraid I'm going to lose power and I have an electric stove. So I want to get one of these camping stoves so I can cook. And it's like, this is only going to last 2 or 3 days. You can't eat sandwiches for a couple days. But anyway, I bought her a stove because, I'm a sucker for a lady.
Of course, I want to start off our conversation by asking you how you are.
I'm doing good this week. Anyone who follows me particularly closely, which is probably about a dozen people, probably realize that I haven't made a lot of videos in the last couple of weeks. And it's because I'm going through chemo right now. And it's getting a little tougher as it goes along because I guess, as you pointed out when we talked last week, I'm getting bags of poison pumped into my bloodstream twice a week. And I guess that stuff builds up over time.
It does.
But this is my week off. They do 2 weeks in my particular treatment schedule. I do 2 weeks on, and then I get a week off. And this is my second cycle. My first cycle, I got a bad stomach virus during my week off and felt worse during my week off than I did when I was getting the chemo. But this week is my week off now, and I feel okay,
I
which
hate
is
to break
nice.
it to you. I'm sure that your doctors have already broken it to you. I hate to underscore that they're correct. That you, yes, chemo gets harder the longer along you go, and also you're not done with it when it stops. It is
Right,
changing
right.
your body. It is changing your body. You'll be lucky if the changes are minor.
Well, he told me, well, I'm on Velcade, which is a real mild chemo relative to others. So, like, I haven't experienced any nausea related to it, but I do have a reduced appetite for the rest of the day.
Mm.
But I go to lunch after chemo every time because I have to drive to Dallas. It's an hour to Dallas from where I live. But I'm getting a lot of reading done. It's just I'm not making a lot of videos because it's harder to talk to all my imaginary friends when I'm feeling poorly.
And you know what would make Randy feel better while he's going through chemo? 1,000 subscribers. That's what would make
Oh
him.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm only 112 away.
He's
I've got
112
888
subscribers away.
subscribers.
Surely, surely you can all find it in your heart as a gesture of wanting him back on a regular basis to tootle on over. I will leave a link to his channel. But I want to
Thanks.
know about the reading.
Oh,
I've had a
so I'm
number
having a
of
great
friends who've
reading
had
year
chemo
so
who
far.
say they get chemo brain and they can't read.
Yeah, no, I don't know. It doesn't seem to matter what's wrong with me physically or how ill I am. I've always been able to read. When I broke my arm, oh goodness. Sorry, that was my daughter calling. But when I broke my arm, I couldn't hold a book to read it. And so I did audiobooks the whole time. And even on heavy doses of morphine, which was what they had me on when I broke my arm. That was a cancer related thing too, by the way. But yeah, I had no trouble following along with the book that I was reading. Of course, it was a book that I'd read 2 or 3 times before.
Are you finding that that periodically feeling like crap because of chemo is pushing you to books that are comfort reads?
Yes, yes. And reading has been a great comfort to me lately. And I've really enjoyed my reading so far this year. And I'm thinking this might be my best year yet in terms of pure numbers. I don't know. You know, number of books that you read in a year is really kind of a meaningless metric because they don't take into account the nature of the books or the length of the books.
Yeah.
I watched one guy, can't remember his name right off the top of my head, who had changed his goal to a certain number of words that he's going to read this year. So I think he's shooting for 20 million words, which sounds a hell of a lot more impressive than 100 books or 50
Yes, it
books.
does. It does.
But pages seems to make pretty good sense for me too. But that still doesn't take into account that there's a huge difference between reading a page of Charles Dickens and reading a page of role playing by Kathy Yardley, which I showed you a minute ago, which is just a delightful little you know chick lit rom com book. My daughter loves it that I read these with her. By the way,
No, it's absolutely true. In
Yeah.
2023, I read more pages than in any year in my life, and it was not a particularly good reading year.
Yeah.
What you want are those sunbursts, those reading experiences that just stop time. You want
Oh
that.
yeah.
If
Yeah. Like Lonesome Dove.
right, right.
Lonesome Dove
I,
last year, or The Quiet American. Those were my big books last year that really, wow.
I'm sure that most readers would agree with me that if you could have 20 of those in a year, you would be perfectly happy with 20 books in a year as your total.
Oh
If all
yeah,
of them were like that.
absolutely.
So you like The Quiet American that much? You like
Oh,
Greg
I loved it.
Greene?
Absolutely
Really?
loved it. But I love the film too. The recent film. I haven't seen the one from the 50s, but the recent film, I call it recent, I think it was 20 years ago, starred Michael Caine and Brendan Fraser. I don't know if you've seen it.
I have.
Yeah. But
But you
I
like the
love the
book
film
as
too.
well.
Sorry.
You like the book as well.
Yeah, I
That
really did. I really enjoyed it.
hmm. So, all right. So I've never been able to have that experience with Graham Greene. I've known people who did, and I don't
Yeah.
rule it out. There are plenty of authors where people say they have that experience. I say, good for you, but the experience is fraudulent. You're talking about a bad author. Graham Greene is one of those authors where I can't say that. I don't know
Yeah.
that this experience is, I've never had it. But I always wonder, it's been my experience that a lot of the people who've had that with Graham Greene also love James Bond novels.
I haven't read any James Bond novels since I was probably 18 or 19,
Really?
but I read all of them.
You
My
did at the
library,
time. Okay, so you read all of them, but you haven't
yeah, my
reviewed them.
public library had all of them, and I read them and I loved them. I did love them. Thunderball was my favorite.
The consensus seems to be in the lit crit world seems to be that they don't age well at all.
That's probably true.
Not and a lot of the readers that I've seen who've done pieces like this or literary blogs like this or whatever say it's not just a question of the sexism and whatnot. It's that Bond as a character is pathetic. He's a whiner in ways that you don't remember. You're thinking about all the adventures that he has, so you don't remember that he himself is a bit of a worm.
Right.
I haven't read a Bond novel in forever and ever, so I didn't. I that seems alien to me. I
I've
don't.
got a copy of Casino Royale to read during Doctor November, and then I didn't read it. So
Did you happen to see Jim at Mystery and Mayhem? Did you see his recent video on Raymond Chandler?
no, but I want to because I like Raymond Chandler novels.
If
But
you
I
watch that video and you don't immediately want to grab a Raymond Chandler novel and reread it, oh, you don't have blood in your veins.
I
It
keep
will make you want to read Chandler.
I keep rereading The Big Sleep, hoping that eventually I'm going to understand the plot. I keep
but,
rewatching the film, hoping that I'm going to understand the plot. But I
but
think I'm
isn't it
finally giving up.
famous? It's famous for having an impenetrable plot. Why
It's
would you put
completely
yourself through
impossible.
that?
Yeah, yeah. It's
What
just
about though? I knew someone. You've been the whole circuit here. One of there's a group of booktubers. Right, there are all kinds of demographic slices of booktube, and I love it for that. But there's a demographic slice of booktube of older guys and gals who have read everything. They've just read everything. Like Jason Harrigan was a member of this long before you came onto booktube. He used to say millions of books have passed through these hands. Millions have.
right.
A lot of these older guys have had stores of their own. They've had long sojourns in particular genres. I think it's safe to say that you're one of those kinds of booktubers.
I've
And
read pretty broadly. Yeah,
when I've known that kind of, I didn't know them as booktubers, but when I've known that kind of reader, and they have had some sort of trouble, whether it's chemo or a bad divorce or losing their job or whatever, the thing they go to is fantasy. But I'm not hearing you mention fantasy.
it's funny that you mentioned fantasy. I just finished a novel called The Malevolent Seven, and I absolutely loved it. It made me feel like a teenager again. It reminded me of, I don't want to say it reminded me of Piers Anthony's Xanth novels because those are just awful. As delightful a person as Piers Anthony seems to be from his newsletter on his website. They were great when I was 17, but now they haven't aged well.
But
But more like Robert Asprin's more comedic stuff.
who is it who just did a video about Xanth? I learned two things from that video. The person said the Xanth novels got bad for about 15 books and then they got better. And also that Piers Anthony is still writing them. I had no
Oh
idea.
yeah,
Really? I had
yeah. He
no idea
punches
that
out
that was
one or
true.
two a year.
I forget who it was. Maybe a viewer will know. I forget who it was who made that video. It was eye-opening to me. This person said, I don't have any illusions about these things always being great. There was a long period where they weren't. Now they are again. This person said he's doing his best science fiction right now.
No kidding. Well, he's crazily prolific. Yeah, because Zant's novels aren't the only thing he writes. If you go to his website, his newsletters are lengthy too. He basically relates all the media that he's consumed each month in his newsletters. So, his newsletter, I watched this movie, I watched that movie, I read this book, I read that book, and it's always really thoughtful and intelligent stuff.
Now,
But
I
his
always get into
newsletter
trouble
slowed
with
down.
this.
He's like 90 years old now.
He has to be 90 years old. He
Yeah.
has to. So
Well, he
the
talks about his
Malevolent
fitness
Seven,
routine too.
but the Malevolent Seven was new for you.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was fantastic. It's a novel about, it's obviously riffing on the Magnificent Seven, but it's a novel about wizards. But these aren't the kind of wizards that you think of with the big floppy starred hats. These are really amoral mercenary wizards, who wind up teaming up to go on a mission. And it's apparently the start of a series. And it was just great. It was just such a fun read. I just tore through it. I just devoured it.
But any older? Are you revisiting any fantasy?
Now, I plan to reread The Lord of the Rings this year. And I think I may save that for a Christmas read. I associate Tolkien with Christmas and The Lord of the Rings with Christmas, probably because that's when the films came out.
Hmm.
But
What about the Shannara books?
you know, the only
Ever a
Shannara
fan?
book I read was the first one.
Yeah.
I read it when I was very young, and I thought, "Oh God, what an awful Lord of the Rings ripoff." Now I understand that as the series continues, it becomes less of a Lord of the Rings ripoff. But the first book was wow. I mean,
Wow.
even the author couldn't deny that he
How
was.
about the Amber Chronicles?
Oh, I love the Amber
Yeah.
Chronicles. Yeah. Um, they're not high on my list to reread. The Once and Future King is high on my list to reread, and I got a nice edition of it. I got all the Stormbringer books, those recent big collections of the Stormbringer books. So I'm looking forward to revisiting those too because I love those. But yeah, I do love fantasy and I love science fiction. But the author that the Malevolent Seven most reminds me of is Robert Ashford. I don't know if you've read any. Well, of
One
course,
or two. One or two.
wonderful.
He isn't he another author who's insanely prolific?
He used to be before he died.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, that slows everybody down.
yeah, well, he wrote the myth books, the myth adventures books, which are terrific and very funny, kind of comic booky. And he spearheaded the Thieves World anthologies, which were great. And then he wrote a series of science fiction novels about a character named Fool, Phule. And so, the titles all have, just like the myth books, the titles are all punny. So, the first book in the Fools series is called Fool's Company, and he's a
But
rich guy that gets put in charge of a bunch of soldiers. But,
the myth books would have to be retitled in the 21st century, right?
well, there's Myth Adventures, Little Myth, the
Right.
Myth Adventures, I think was
The 21st century would cancel them for making fun of
Hit
people
or
with
Myth.
speech impediments. They make fun of people with speech
Oh,
impediments.
that's right.
You
Yeah.
can't do it.
I was wondering why they would cancel that, but yeah, that's what.
Oh, there's a reason. No matter what, there's a reason.
But you know what? Even in cancel culture, I can always find Blazing Saddles streaming somewhere. It's on Netflix now.
Is it really?
It
It's
is.
on
It was on
Netflix?
Amazon Prime last time we talked about it, but now it's
Oh
on Netflix.
my.
And it's
Oh,
making the rounds.
do they do anything with it? They bleep
No,
out anything or
I don't think so, but I haven't watched it yet to see. But I
it
have
would-
fond memories of it.
well, who doesn't? It's
We
one of the
used to.
funniest movies ever
It's one of
made.
the funniest movies ever made.
Except that a whole generation of people now, a whole generation of young people cannot see it as funny. They cannot,
Oh
they
no,
would not laugh at it.
my daughters are like that. Yeah, my daughters are just, you know, they have trouble realizing that you can enjoy something that doesn't meet modern sensibilities.
Yeah.
And of course, I know you hate Stephen King, but my daughters, I've tried to turn them on to a couple of his better novels, like Salem's Lot, which I think is terrific, or The Dead Zone, which is also great. And they just can't get over the super duper magical Negroes that show up in the
Uh,
books. you
A
and
persistent
they're
thing.
convinced that he's effeminate, that he's a chauvinist too. And you know, he's not, he's just from a different generation.
Yeah, it's shocking to see. You'd think that something that's just pricelessly comic would cut through, but it really shows you how deep social conditioning is. I
Yeah.
watched Blazing Saddles once years ago with a young person in the room, and her whole face was crimped up the whole time, and
Ugh,
she kept repeating the word painful.
yeah.
It wasn't. It didn't break through. The cultural conditioning was too strong. She was watching something that's absolutely hilarious, and it was painful for her.
Right.
But you mentioned, like, for instance, you mentioned that your original reaction to the Sword of Shannara was, "Oh my God, this is a Tolkien ripoff of the worst order." What about Thomas Covenant?
Didn't like Thomas Covenant.
No.
I thought it was a real drag. I've tried it multiple times through the years and just couldn't do it.
Hmm. Wow.
Strangely enough, yeah.
Okay. And
I
of
can
course, the
enjoy it.
elephant in the room here is the Wheel of Time.
The Wheel of Time I haven't read at all,
Oh my.
but I have read Song of Ice and Fire up to the most recent one.
I guess that's the elephant in the room now, isn't it? The Wheel of Time is not the elephant in the room anymore. Although the
Uh,
Wheel of Time just had a second season on TV. So
yeah, I watched some of it with my roommate, and she liked it a lot. Um, I am creeping back into science fiction too. I'm planning to reread Dune this year, so
wow,
I'm
you're
really
going to
excited
reread
about
Dune
that.
and Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, yeah, why not?
And Once and Future King. Good Lord. It's
Well,
gonna be hard for other books to measure up.
one of the things you mentioned in one of your videos recently was, I think it was you that mentioned in one of your videos that having a book that you reread on an annual basis is a good thing to do. And I have basically one of those. I reread The Great Gatsby every.
Oh, do you really? Oh wow.
Yes,
Oh,
and it's wonderful. But I thought I loved Lonesome Dove enough that it's a consideration to be an annual reread.
yeah, I
And
always
getting to
want I
know a
always want
book
to
in that way.
advocate that to people. It disturbs me how many people in the 21st century don't, even readers, don't seem to get rereading. And
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's sometimes I roll my eyes at Benjamin McAvoy when I watch his channel. But he talks about if it's a really great book, you never stop reading.
right.
You read it for the rest of your life.
I'm not denying the fact that occasionally true things about books come out of his pretty lips. I'm not denying that fact at all. All I'm talking about is the high Anglican Church way that he says.
Right, right,
I don't doubt that whoever's writing his scripts is a genuine reader.
right. Well, he's it's funny because we've talked about how those eyes couldn't possibly be that blue. Those have to be contacts. And so, you know, investigative reporter that I am, I went through all his videos till I found some of his earliest ones. His eyes were green in the original videos to match his shirt. So those are definitely colored contacts,
All I
which
can
I
think
have no
about
problem with. I've dyed my hair before.
when I watch his videos, all I can think is what people would say on a video of yours or a video of mine or Mark Richardson, God help us all, or something like that. If one of us were suddenly to break out in that breathless high church tone of his, our comments would be full of people making fun of us. It'd be full
Right,
of
right. Yeah. Oh, for sure. I would hope so. You
I
know.
would hope so too. Yes. Imagine you come on screen and say, "This will change your very soul." People would never stop making fun of us. I don't know. It apparently works for him. So
Oh yeah,
I
big
don't
time.
expect to get him to change it.
He's
But
doing something right.
the people who don't seem to get rereading, I wonder if the solution to that might not be not so much picking a book at random and rereading it, but doing that. Reread a book every year,
Yeah.
provided the book can take it, provided the book can take the weight.
Right, right. Because at some point, eventually, you know, I don't think The Catcher in the Rye would hold up to that very well because it's a very different book when you read it as an 18-year-old than it is when you read it as a 45-year-old.
Yeah. Yeah. I myself think better. I think it seems like a better book the older you are when you read it. I
Yeah.
think maybe not. You don't
That
you don't
wasn't my
credit.
experience, but I'll probably revisit it again because I have such fond memories of it from when I was
And
younger.
I wonder if maybe I'm wrong because I know a lot of people who reread the same book every year, and it's not always a book that I would think could take the weight. It
Right.
it could just be that you change as a reader. I mean, that's the obvious reason
Absolutely.
to reread anything is that you change as a reader.
was the hermeneutic circle.
Is it indeed?
Yeah. We're going to talk about Truffaut in a minute, too.
No, we don't have to. I don't want to deny a sick patient his indulgences, but we don't have to.
Right. No, we're not going to discuss Truffaut. Did Truffaut direct Two or Three Things I Know About Her, or was that other?
I'm sure he did.
Two or Three Things I Know About Her was one of the worst movies I ever saw, and I think that was Truffaut, but I could be mistaken. It could have been one of those other artsy French directors.
I invariably, when you start talking about movies, you get these people, and I don't believe them. I don't believe that in the privacy of their own home, in front of their gigantic plasma screen TV, they ever put this junk on. I don't.
Well, I definitely agree with you. Nobody's sitting around thinking, "Hey, let's watch Metropolis."
If you have a choice, these pretentious film people, when they have a choice and no one's around and that no one's coming to visit, it's Roadhouse that goes in that player.
Roadhouse is endlessly entertaining.
It's not
It is
Metropolis. It's Roadhouse.
Roadhouse is terrific. So I had a girlfriend. I had a long distance relationship not too long ago with a woman in Houston, and I flew her in for a visit. She was here at the house, and so I was going to show her my favorite movie, Casablanca. And we watched Casablanca, which she'd never seen, and she really liked it. And she'd kind of let on like she was a sapiosexual, that she really liked intelligent guys, which I don't doubt was true. She told me one time, this is about as raunchy as I'm going to get on film. She told me one time she wanted to lick my brain. So, anyway, so after we watched Casablanca, she says, well, now I want to show you my favorite movie. And I didn't know what she was thinking of. I thought maybe Brigadoon or something like that. She talked about it before. And she says, let's watch Dirty Dancing 2, Havana Nights. Not Dirty Dancing, but Dirty Dancing 2, Havana Nights, which was as awful as you'd expect with a title like that. It was just terrible. And it's just like, do you remember the scene in Annie Hall where Woody Allen is talking to Diane Keaton and she says, you're what Grammy Hall would call a real Jew. And he goes, that was the expression I made when she told me her favorite movie was Dirty Dancing 2, Havana Nights.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Oh, don't.
I only watched the first one for Jerry Orbach. I didn't watch the first one for anything else, just for him.
Yeah. Well, it's set at exactly the same period of time as Havana with Robert Redford, which I don't know if you've seen that or not. It's a remake of Casablanca, and it's wonderful. Sidney Pollack directed it, and when it came out, the traditional wisdom was if you love Casablanca, you'll hate Havana, but it's not true. You'll love both, probably, in my opinion. But just the difference in terms of how they, showed what happened the night that Castro won compared to the Sidney Pollack version and whoever directed Dirty Dancing 2, Havana Nights. It's just it's so dramatic it's not even funny. Almost like watching a film from the asylum.
I have to know. I mean, you don't have to say, but I have to know, how did Randy Ray, BookTube's foremost ladies man, how on earth did you handle that moment? That seems like it would strain even your social capabilities.
I said, sure, honey, let's watch it.
But I mean, afterward, when you were done and there's just this appalled look on your face, what are you supposed to say?
I think I said, that was remarkable.
Yeah. I assume that the segue from Dirty Dancing was Patrick Swayze.
Well, he has a cameo in Dirty Dancing too.
He does.
It's a different character. He's just a dance instructor, and he's not in the movie for more than 5 minutes.
So that's the segue from Roadhouse.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly. Roadhouse is terrific, though. Roadhouse is so great.
I always feel sorry for Sam Neill's character
Yeah.
in that movie, because he comes to town. It's he's just looking up an old friend.
Right.
He's in a fight right away. He's in a fight after that. He's beaten up,
Oh yeah, they tear Sam Elliott all the hell in that movie.
and then oh, Sam Elliott, that's right, not
Yeah,
Sam Neill, Sam Elliott. He's beaten up, and then off stage, he's beaten up even worse and killed, and
right.
just left on the bar. Some sort of a, you know, a voodoo doll with a knife stuck through its chest. It's just an awful way to dispose of a character. Although not as bad as the villain gets it in the movie, of
Yeah,
course.
yeah.
the,
Great Ben
classic,
Gazzara.
the classic climax of the movie.
Well, yeah, and it was such a classic climax for the time too, because doesn't it, like freeze frame, everybody's standing around now that they've won and they're kind of laughing. It was like a Dukes of Hazzard episode almost.
So Zoom tells me that we're about to run out of time. I want to know. I'm
Wow.
sure that other people want to know too, since you're not making videos. What the if we get back to your health situation, what's the short term look of the future? What's
The
your record going to be?
expectation is that I should be in remission in 2 or 3 months. So maybe even sooner than that. But the good news is the medication is working,
Okay.
because they weren't sure if the medication was going to work until they tried it. But I had the blood work done, and I do plan to continue to make videos just when I feel like it.
Hmm.
So I haven't felt like it lately, but I did do a video yesterday with Mark, and doing a video with you today, and certainly willing to. I enjoy the back and forth of these conversational videos a lot, and they seem to be easier for me than other videos. I do have plans for all kinds of videos that I want to make. It's just a question of feeling like making them. Right now, I feel like making them all.
The,
Maybe I'll
the
film some after we hang up, but
the back and forth can be a lot of fun.
oh
And
yeah,
uh,
absolutely. Especially with people like you and Mark. You know,
yeah, as long as it's not Joe Spivey.
well, I actually asked Joe Spivey if we could do a video together, and he said, "Well, maybe Steve can set something up for the three of us."
A big round table of just random chatting would be so much fun.
Joe Spivey's a hoot, man. I get a big kick out of him. Yeah, he's a lot of fun.
He's a hoot. Every once in a while, we get a character on BookTube, whether it's you or him. Who knows who the next one will be? We never know who the character is going to be.
I went out with a woman not too long ago, and she's the one I had to rescue this morning, and we'd gone to dinner, and I was telling her that I'd lived in Denton long enough that I'd become one of the local characters, because I'm a creature of habit. I'll eat at the same restaurant on the same day, or even every day, depending. But anyway, I was telling her that I'd become a local character, and I'm really well known in certain circles. I'm part of the recovery community here because I'm a recovering alcoholic, and I know everybody in town that's involved in recovery. And we were eating this really really nice sushi restaurant here. It's like the best sushi in Texas, and it's kind of a secret too. Not everyone knows about it, but anyway, a couple came in, and she knew them, and they spoke for a minute. She introduced me to them. They went and found their seats, and she looked at me and she said, Randy, I'm kind of a local character too. And she certainly is.
Hmm. I'm barely known at all. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
known
Well,
in my neighborhood as the dog guy, but other than
yeah.
that,
Well, I'm sure they know you at Brattle Books. I mean, they know
they
me at
know with the
Recycle.
brattle. Yeah, they know with the brattle. But here in the neighborhood, it's just the dog guy. Not because I have dogs, but because everybody's dogs get along with me. Everybody's dogs start pulling at the leash to say hi to me when they see me, which is great for me. Not so much for my little Bean. My little Frida does not like when dogs get pushy. She'll just stand by and yell at them. But okay, so we have the short term prognosis. You're looking at being in remission by spring,
Right.
which is great. That is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
What is the reading version of that? Are you just going to keep doing the best you can for the next couple of months? Just read whatever.
I am in February. I plan to dive into Sherlock Holmes wholeheartedly all month. I'm not planning to read anything but Sherlock Holmes all month. I'm going to devote myself to Holmes is where the heart is,
Holmes
which
is where the heart is. Yes, that's the.
I wanted to do Holmes for the holidays, and but I got outvoted. But
Now, you say you're going to dive into that one author. That sounds like so much fun. But are you going to extend that to pastiches?
oh, absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
because it won't take me all month to finish the entire
Are
Can't.
you have you been a fan of Holmes pastiche novels? Have you read a lot of them?
I don't know that I've read a lot of them. I'm a fan of the Nicholas Meyer pastiches. I think he really gets it, and they're a lot of fun. I read The Beekeeper's Apprentice by Laurie King, maybe, and I liked it well enough. I am a fan of August Derleth's Solar Pond series.
You are.
I
Indeed.
love those, and so I'll probably read some of those. But I want to catch up on some of the pastiches that are well reviewed that I've missed too.
There's that whole a lot of the pastiches were gathered together into that series with the uniform covers, the Holmes silhouette on the cover. A lot of those I remember from what they originally looked like. They were all brought into that series. There are a ton of those.
Well, I'm really excited about Sherlock Holmes in February because I'm a mystery reader from way back. My mom subscribed to Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine and Alfred Hitchcock Magazine, and there was a writer, Edward D. Hoke, who was published. He had a short story every single month in Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine, and they were all series. But one of them was about a country doctor named Sam Hawthorne. So he has the same initials as Sherlock Holmes, but it was set in the 20s, but he had a similar style. He didn't have the sidekick that I recall, but yeah,
Do you remember Sam Hawthorne? I don't know that at all.
mystery fiction. Mystery
Do you
fiction.
remember if those things were ever collected?
Sorry,
Were they ever collected?
I don't know. I don't know. I
Do
know
you,
that some of his stories were collected. I really liked his Nick Velvet stories too, because Nick Velvet was a thief, a professional thief that you could hire to steal something for you for 20,000, or the prices went up as the series went on. $20,000, $25,000. The catch was he would refuse to steal anything of any value. So, anyway, it made for a nice little series because you always had the mystery of why would they want that stolen because it's worth,
right.
you know. So those were a lot of fun. But
I would be extremely vulnerable to such a thief.
I read this, and I don't know if you recommended this to me or not, but I just finished reading this
No, I
as a
didn't.
buddy read with
No, I didn't. You
chronology.
recommended it to me. You said it was really good.
It was really great. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. And it has kind of a tongue in the cheek wink wink at the audience or the reader of, hey, you know what? We know what the characters know what a locked room mystery is. One of the main characters even talks about a book by who's the locked room mystery expert.
Right. The dean of locked room mysteries. Oh my
Can't
God.
remember
He's
the
gone right out
book.
of my head. But
But of
I
course,
know what
the
you
main
mean.
character, the stage magician, has read his books and is explaining the different types of locked room
That
solutions.
is one of the only Otto Penzler big Black Lizard books that I don't have. The big volume that he did of the big book of locked room mysteries. It's one of the only ones I don't have. I wish I did, as those are always fun to revisit.
Yeah.
Those are just wonderful. I don't. That's one that I don't have.
Well, I'm looking forward to reading Nero Wolfe. I've got a Nero Wolfe novel to read, and then I've got an Agatha Christie novel to read too.
So
Because one of the prompts is to read about literary descendants of Sherlock Holmes. So those are the two that I have lined up: a Poirot novel and then a new. And I haven't read any of the Nero Wolfe novels, so I'm
so
excited about that.
you've never read a Nero Wolfe novel?
I have so much to look forward to.
Oh my God.
I don't think I
So,
have. Maybe I have. I don't know. I read a lot of
so
mystery in my younger years.
Homes for the Holidays, or no, Homes is Where the Heart Is, whatever it's called. You're going to
Oh,
start that off by reading the canon?
yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I'm going to read it in order. I'm going to start with the Scarlet Letter. We have less than a minute left.
Oh, that's right, we do. Oh, well,
These
let's
always
pick it
just
up
fly
then.
by, don't
They do. They do fly by. I could talk for hours.
they? Oh, that's
Let's wrap up so we don't get caught in mid-syllable.
all right. That sounds great.
So we're gonna wrap things up. We're gonna say goodbye to Driftwood Ranch. Remember, the thing that would make Randy feel better would be if you tootle on over and subscribe to his channel.
Like, comment, and subscribe, mateys.
All right, we're gonna wrap this up before he plugs his Patreon.
Okay, great. Well, thanks for having me on, Steve.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.